Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniatures, and it's Friday, which means we have for you yet another obscurity in literature. Now this one's going back a few years. In more ways than one, actually. This is Thrud the Barbarian by the one and only Critchlow. Now, for you really old school people, this should look really familiar in some way, shape, or form because Thrud was back there in the days when White Dwarf, the GW mainstay publication, was still in its infancy, and he was there for quite a few years, actually. He was a very regular cast of the ensemble on the monthly magazine, when it was not just a glorified advertisement, but when it was a more well-rounded fantasy magazine. You definitely saw Thrud in there quite a bit. This book actually came out 2013, if I recall correctly, but I feel like, and I want to say that it was actually individual issues that came out earlier. There's an introduction by Brian Talbot being a very big influence on Critchlow's art. And what always struck me about this series, now, number one, it's just a bunch of one-off little stories. Now, they are, I guess, full chapter stories. And they are pure Thrud in their over-the-top comedy and violence. And when I recall the Zombicide campaign had Thrud as a guest actor for the game, I thought that the quote on there about the sacred jockstrap of Robert E. Howard was actually just Cool Mini being ridiculous, but no, that is an actual line in the comic. And what's funny is every time I saw the artwork for this version of Thrud, and I do say this version because one of the nice little bonuses is in the back of the book we have a couple of the old White Dwarf strips, not anywhere near all of them. And that's a real shame. I think that's my biggest thumbs down for this book. My biggest criticism is I really would have liked to have seen a collected version of all those. Maybe through GW, maybe through Titan. Titan is just putting out such weird, eclectic stuff, and I gotta love them for that. On one hand, they'll do this. On the other hand, they'll do a bunch of licensed stuff. And then the next second, they are translating and publishing a bunch of French books in big, overglorious hardcover. So what I found interesting, I love the artwork. It's very just fantasy for fantasy's sake. There is no rhyme or reason for why things are the way they are, but you've got all of the traditional tropes, giant monsters of every shape and size. But now that I think about it, I don't recall if there was actually a dragon in any of these stories. You've got the Black Currant showing up at one point. We've got the whole take on the Frost Giant's daughter. Gandalf-like lines. Some gargoyles at least. And the artwork is really nice. I don't know, did Critchlow color it himself? I like the use of color. It looks nice. Sometimes the artist, I guess he did all the color himself. It works. I really like. It's not overboard, but the layout of the colors looks really good, I think. And like I said, you got the Black Currant with its horns that don't fit through the hallway. I think probably chapter 4 was my favorite of the various chapters, if only because it is such a lovingly knock on 2000 AD's Slain. And I know Critchlow actually did quite a few 2000 AD stories. I know he's done some Flesh ones because I know I've seen those ones, as well as quite a few others, Judge Dredd and the like. But yeah, it's totally with his helper dwarf, where there's like sky ships. It's the whole kit and caboodle. Big spread. I forget what they call the dwarf in this one. Like I said, you gotta have your sky ship. Oh, this is the one where they go to the jungle. Complete with Mayan Mesoamerican lizard men, right? So the artwork, quite nice. I'm going to spoil everything for you. There's a couple one-shots. But here's where it gets interesting. In the very back, like I said, there's just a couple, and I mean very few, White Dwarf stories. And I mean, these are dated like 80... That's 87. I want to say that it started like 83, 84 in the magazine. Thrud in a game of Blood Bowl. Who would have thought, right? Now what's interesting is they've got this one dated 87, and then on the opposite page a redo from 2001. I don't remember this, but was I reading White Dwarf in 2001? Hard to say. And we've got some nice sketch work behind the scenes in the back, as well as some author info. What really struck me, and I think I was starting to say this at one point, was the artwork is so reminiscent of something from my childhood. And not exactly, but Keith Giffen's art. And I know he started when he was doing like Justice League. He started this, but I think he solidified that style when he started doing Trencher. And I mean, some scenes, some pieces of the art, especially on Thrud himself, and just the way the details are drawn in. It's nowhere near as wild and as scribbly as Giffen was when he was doing Trencher. I loved Trencher when it came out. This was like... Of course, in my defense, I loved what Keith Giffen was doing for DC at the time. I will never forget, I got a copy of his Ambush Bug Eclipso special in like some dollar grab bag or something at one of the local comic shops when it existed. And I got far more entertainment out of that book than I really should have been able to. I'm trying to remember if Giffen did the Doom Patrol knockoff, where it was like making fun of Liefeld's X-Force at the time. That was a good one too. I don't know if I have that still. Of course, looking at the colors and stuff, this is a lot nicer than I remember. Is this the one where they lose the Trencher's head? Yep. 1993 this was printed. Look at that fan art. Thankfully you'll never find any of mine in here, but yeah, totally reminds me of Critchlow's art. Maybe that's just me. Definitely a fun trip down memory lane in more ways than one. This book should still be in print. Maybe there's more out there. I'm not 100% sure, at least on this side of the Atlantic. Critchlow's art and stories probably a little bit harder to find than they would be in the UK. So maybe some of you over there, and I know you're out there because I can see the analytics saying you are, might be able to help shed some light on that situation a little bit better. But funny thing was, what got me down this road, and he wouldn't let me take them, but was magic cards of all things. I didn't realize, and my son had some magic cards we were going through, and he was building a deck, but Critchlow actually illustrated a bunch, and then I went and double checked online, and I was like, oh, kind of curious, and he did like over 200 of them, so kind of crazy. But yeah, fun stuff. I will see if I can find an Amazon link down below. We'll put that there for you, and hopefully you guys are going to have some fun reminiscing as well as I have. So with that said, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.